Okay, and we are live on Facebook for another episode of Hot Topics from the Amateur Rugby Podcast, recording via Facebook Live on Thursday, 24th of September, 2020. Now, let's go and see who our mystery guest is today. Mystery guest, reveal yourself.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Z. How are you?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So this is Z Alema. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, great. So, Z, let's start off, if we can, and just tell me a little bit about yourself. Give us a 30-second overview.
So my name is Zainab, but people call me Z for short, especially within the rugby field. Also, I'm known as Bulldozer as well, but we'll probably get into that later as to why I got that name. I'm a mother of three. I'm a neonatal nurse by profession, and I'm a rugby player by passion. Been playing rugby for the last 10 years. Absolutely enjoy it. It's just a big part of my life. That's
Awesome. There's a lot to, there's a lot to get into there. So, what brought rugby to your attention, and how did you get into the game to start off with?
Yeah, so it started in school. So at high school, it was a PE session. My PE teacher was running the session, and was playing rugby. I absolutely enjoyed it. A lot of my peers were really not into it. They didn't want to fall down. They hated the rough and tumble. But I was like, yeah, this is great. I was in my element basically. And my PE teacher was like to me, like, Zainab, do you want to try going, to playing rugby? And I was like, nah, not really. Just shrugged it off really. But I absolutely love sports. I was always participating in sports day. I was on the rounders team. I played basketball. But rugby was one of those sports I actually never knew much about. I didn't even know women even play rugby or girls played rugby at that time. So I picked up PE in A level. And again, I needed to do like a physical element to my coursework. So my PE teacher at A-level asked me, what do you want to do? And I was like, do you know what? Let me try rugby, because I remember in high school, my PE teacher said I was all right. So let me just try rugby. So she actually went out of her way to speak to the head teacher and said, I've got a student, she's doing PE. I want her to start rugby. Can we get her into a club? So the school managed to pay a whole year's membership at my first club, which is like Ealing Childfinders. And I've never looked back since then.
Amazing. Okay, so it came from school originally, and what school was that? Whereabouts?
Chiswick
High
School
right.
in London, yeah.
And is it a traditional rugby playing school or no?
I wouldn't say no, not really. I don't know if it's changed now, but when I was there, I think we used to have a few rugby development officers coming to do a session, but it was all new at that time. So it wasn't really heavily based rugby school. I wouldn't say it was.
Okay, and when was that? What sort of year
so this
are we
was
talking
like
then?
Probably like 2008, 2009. Yeah, around that time. Yeah.
Okay, so still fairly recently, really.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so you went to Ealing, which is, I think is one of my former clubs as well. And obviously it sounds like you got on quite well there. So how did your sort of playing career go from there?
Yeah, so I started off at Ealing and I played one season because I was 17 when I was in A-level. I did one season and then 18 years old, I had to go to university. So I went to University of Hertfordshire to do my nursing degree. I was a bit apprehensive to start because I knew I wanted to play rugby at uni, but I was a bit apprehensive to start at uni because I know it's a whole different new environment, have to meet new people. So I was a bit apprehensive, but I waited because I started in about September time. I waited until February, which I think was the second semester. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do it. Let me just get to know the girls. Let me just go into a training session. So I went and the first session was it was a non-contact session. I think we were doing some like evasion drills and we were playing touch or something like that. And obviously me being me, I went to go and tackle somebody and they're like, yeah, right, you're on the team. It was quite funny, but it was amazing. 3 years of university rugby, I think, was the best rugby moments. Looking back, absolutely amazing. In the final year, I think the 2013 to 14 season, we managed to win the Bucks Championship. which is a university league, and
Yeah.
we got to play at Allianz Park for the final, and it was just amazing. And knowing that that was my final year at uni, and I having to, you know, to get into play at Allianz Park and win, it was just amazing. There was nothing like it. So yeah, it was absolutely amazing playing rugby in uni. So after I qualified as a nurse, you know, I started being an adult, like a proper adult, and had to go in to do shift work and work in the hospital. And there was just something missing. I was thinking, I need to do rugby again. Rugby's missing in my life. So at that time I was living at Canary Wharf in East London. And I just went on to Google what's my closest, you know, my nearest rugby club, and it was Millwall that came up.
Mm.
So I took a trip down to the Millwall Rugby Club, and yeah, just played them for about a season. Then I had my first child. Then I went off again, came back, went off again for my second child. And then I moved to West London more recently, and then I joined Barnes, which is my current club now. And yeah, absolutely love it here.
Awesome. And how have you found like joining new rugby clubs? Have you found it easy or difficult? How have you sort of settled in?
Yeah, I think throughout my rugby journey, let me just go back a little bit. So when I started playing rugby, I was very conscious that I was different, and I mean that by like I looked different. So I was the only black girl on my team when I started playing rugby, and obviously the only Muslim as well. So having those two things made me noticeably different in the team. So I always had this thing of whenever I wanted to join a new team, I'll just quickly do a quick search on their page to see if they had another black girl, another ethnic minority in the team, just so when I come in, I will feel a bit at ease. I'll feel a bit as if I fit in and not be the only one as I felt previously. So when I was at East London, obviously East London is quite a multicultural area. So joining Millwall, I think there was another black girl on the team already when I joined. So that made it a bit easier to sort of settle in. But then when I was moved to Barnes, I became again the only black girl on the team. Although I do believe there was another ethnic minority there, but funny enough, I feel at home at Barnes more than I've ever felt in any other rugby club.
Right.
You know, in Barnes, yeah. So absolutely love the club, and definitely feel at home at Barnes, and the girls of the whole club have been very welcoming, and it's been amazing. But yeah, I always used to have this thing about checking and scanning the teams to see if there was any other ethnic minority, just so when I go in, I don't feel awkward. I don't feel I'm the only one. Yeah.
And that would be a big thing, obviously. I mean, you've just talked about it there. Just seeing other people from ethnic minorities makes it that much easier to go and be involved.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's not, yeah, not even just from also obviously being Muslim, I wear the hijab and they're covered up. So that was another thing that made me look different as well. So everyone will be out there wearing their shorts and stuff, and I'll be like wearing my shorts but wearing leggings underneath, or wearing my underarm under my top, and like it always played in my mind that I really look different. And what the hard bit was, because I didn't see anyone else that was Muslim that looked like me, so I thought, is this sport for me? Like, what am I doing here? Is this actually, you know, is this sport for me? It was quite difficult to begin with, because I just didn't really feel like I fit in or I belonged in rugby in the beginning.
So how did you process that? Because you're still in the game now, aren't you?
Yeah.
And so how did you get through that and sort of come out the other side, so to speak?
Yeah, I think the strongest feeling was that I knew I loved the sport. I had passion for the sport, and that's been the common theme. Like that love for the game was always stronger than whatever obstacles I faced, and so that was always the thing that pulled me through. And I just thought to myself, there was one point playing after I left uni, I think it was, or just before I left, I was just thinking, okay, now I'm going into the real adult world of rugby. I'm not playing for a university team. I'm going to have to go to a senior team. Do I still want to experience that awkwardness of being the only one, or the awkwardness of not drinking after? Because obviously rugby is heavily, the culture of rugby is heavily alcohol based. Go to the pub, have a pint, lads kind of culture. do I still want to experience that awkwardness after a match, going to the bar, or just, and so I had to make a big decision. Do I keep playing rugby or not? This is after I qualified as a nurse. And I thought, let me just go through the laws of rugby. And I just had a scan quickly through about the dress code. And it was there, black and white, that for religious reasons, you can wear a headscarf. You can don a headscarf as long as it doesn't harm you as a player or, other people. So I think that for me really cemented my, I belonged in rugby. That for me was like, rugby is welcoming you. You can play. You can be a Muslim. You don't have to denounce your faith to play a sport that you love. You can still play rugby and be accepted. So I think that was the deciding factor, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
And after that, I thought I just became more relaxed about who I was, and playing rugby as a Muslim woman just came relaxed, because I'm like, I've got something to back me up here. The rules of rugby is saying I can play, So I became really relaxed after that, and I was becoming more comfortable within myself as a player as well. So yeah, that was a big turning point.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Awesome. Just going back to something else you said previously about not knowing that women even played rugby when you first started. Mm-hmm. Just looking at women role models for BAME participants in particular, there isn't that many in the game at the moment, in the women's game, and historically as well. Obviously, Maggie Alfonsi was the kind of leader of all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Who are your sort of heroes now? Who are you sort of looking up to?
Well, I definitely still look up to Maggie, if I'm honest. Right. I think when I started playing rugby, she was the only Black woman playing at elite level. And at that point, actually, when I was making a decision whether or not to stay in rugby, she was, playing at elite level. And I thought, do you know what? If Maggie can do it, why can't I do it? She's gone through the ranks. She's a Black woman playing at elite level. Why can't I be a Black woman playing at grassroots level? Like, that, if Maggie has a spot on the international team, I should have a spot in my grassroots club. So I definitely looked up to her, and I think now there are more ethnic minorities going through the ranks. I would say now Shauna Brown is probably the most consistent Black woman or person living of ethnic minority in the women's game, and she's absolute inspiration. And even like, she just loved the way she's just so unapologetic. I can't never say that word. Unapologetically, yeah, that's it.
Nice.
Herself. And she dons her afro. She gets on the pitch, and good player, good person off the pitch as well. So she's definitely one of my role models. And I just would love to see many more ethnic minorities definitely in grassroots, but also at elite level, because I think representation is a massive thing. If you can't see it, you can't be it. That's basically, in short. If you can't see someone that looks like you, you're gonna feel like you can't do. So yeah, you're gonna feel like you can't do it either. So you've got to see it to be it, basically. So yeah, and I just always I'm one of those people, like, I just feel like it's already hard enough playing a sport that's male dominated, right? Rugby is male dominated, and it's a physical sport as well. So coming from a Muslim background, an African, because I'm also African, British, my parents are African, Ghanaian born specifically, you have those barriers as well, because sport is not always seen as top priority. Education is. If I said to my dad, I want to become a doctor, I want to become a lawyer, he would be like, yeah, go for it. When I told my dad I wanted to play rugby, he was just like, why do you play rugby? Rugby is a man's sport. Rugby is elitist, and he this is my dad we're talking about, and he already had this stereotypes. So for me, I just shrugged off. I'm like, well, you can think of it what you want. I still want to play rugby, right? But in other households, maybe your dad having that view could automatically be a barrier for you. So yeah, it was just like, and then you have like if I wanted to get married at a young age, which I did anyway, like marriage, education, those are the things that certain people from certain ethnic minorities and backgrounds have to deal with, and this is fine. But sport is like, people don't see the end goal with sport. It's like, oh, you're just wasting your time almost.
Yeah.
But we just need to change those attitudes, and I do feel like people of my generation are accepting the fact that sport is very important, and we need to sort of change those attitudes to make sure young people of this day and age actually take sports seriously. You don't have to be good at sports. Just participating, being active, getting out the house, going for a jog, going for a walk. It does wonders, not only to mental health, but physical health. Socially, you can meet people through sport as well. So I think a lot of it as well is about changing perceptions.
Yeah, see, unbelievable messages there. I can't agree with you more strongly. So hopefully, like you say, we'll see more and more female athletes from a BAME background coming through to play at the elite level. And I really genuinely think it's just a matter of time. I think there's a generation now of young girls playing the sport from BAME backgrounds. And I think it's just a matter of time before they sort of come through and will be representing the Red Roses. I think it's only a matter of probably a year or two, maybe.
I even have on my Instagram, on my bio, I say one day, because I love tea. My favorite tea is Earl Grey, and I always talk about Earl Grey. And actually, recently, Tim, I found out Earl Grey does a lot of good things. I can't remember what they were, but I saw it. I think it was yesterday. Someone posted Earl Grey and its health benefits, and there was a lots of things. I'm like, I drink this tea almost every day, not knowing how much it even benefits me. But yeah, anyway, back to my point. So I put in my Instagram bio that one day I'd love to sit down, Earl Grey in hand, switch on the TV, and be watching, the Red Roses play an international game and spot a Muslim woman representing England. And I think I would be very emotional if I'm alive to see that day. I don't know if I will be, and I hope I will be, just because me being one, I would have known that she would have to have gone through a lot of barriers or a certain journey before she can even get there. So I'll be really proud of her. And a lot of people have messaged me, I'm like, are you sure like that's not your dream secretly, or that's what then you want to do that? And I'm like, it's actually not even about me. It's more about paving the way for those that are coming after me, or just making sure me being present on social media or wherever I am, telling people about the game, telling people about being active, playing rugby, or just participating in sports. Hopefully that will inspire, empower other people from ethnic minorities to pick up the rugby ball, or to just get out of the house and be active. So it's definitely not about me. It's more about what can I do to make it easier. I would say, I think that's the word, make it easier, and for it to seem normal. Because people look at me, and I remember one day, so I keep going on, I have so many little stories, but I have one day, I went to, I don't know if you know Holland Park, it's in Kensington. Mm-hmm. So I was in Holland Park with my friend. We were going to do a little interview for one of her brands. And there's me, full in-full kit, with a rugby ball in hand. And I was walking through Holland Park, which is quite a posh park because it's in the middle of middle class, upper class area. And people were looking at me, like, they would look at me, look at the ball, look at me, look at the ball, like, as if like, what is she doing holding a rugby ball? That's what it felt like, because they just kept on staring at me. And I was very self-conscious, like, what is there something, like, what is it? But I just noticed because they kept on looking at me and looking at the ball and going up and down. So I think it was just unusual for them. Yeah. And that just sort of makes it even more apparent that things need to change. It's not the norm for a Muslim woman to be holding a rugby ball. So it's about changing those perceptions and making it not seem unusual anymore. And I still get these comments, people mentioning like, you're the first, Muslim woman I've seen play rugby. And I want it to be a point. I want us to come to a point where it's not unheard of, where it's not a surprise. So
does that make you want to carry a rugby ball around with you everywhere, or never again?
I wanted to balance it on my head. I really wanted to, it definitely made me feel like, you know what, I need to definitely stick to rugby and, keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully, the message will come across that this can be normal and should be normal.
Well, it's definitely happening in the women's game generally. Like, the women's game is growing massively quickly at the moment. So I do believe that with people like you sort of spreading such a positive message, that it will just continue to do so, and also then for BAME participants as well. Now, do you think like the game itself is doing enough to encourage this?
I think that there are things being done, there are efforts being done. For example, I've worked on another occasion with Project Rugby, which is a scheme by Premiership Rugby and Gallagher to sort of try and get people from Black, Asian, ethnic minorities and from low socioeconomical backgrounds into rugby. They also work with disabilities and mixed abilities groups, and it's like they're doing really good work, you know, in the community, especially like going to schools to try and get these underrepresented groups into rugby, which is absolutely amazing. And when I started playing rugby, there was nothing like it. So I really commend that, you know, that initiative and that program. You had the All Schools program as well. So there are efforts being made, but I do think there's still more to be done, if I'm honest. I started, you know, I was introduced to rugby through school, which is great. And I feel like school is probably the number one place you should go to and target if you want to get young kids into rugby. But that's not the only place. Things like local estates, things like youth centres. Where do these young ethnic minorities hang out after school? Where are they going? Try and target those areas. I mean, I can give an example. You can go to, if you look at places where a lot of ethnic minorities are and people from low socioeconomical backgrounds are, you'll see maybe there's a basketball court or there's like kids holding a football playing about. But how often do you see any of those kids holding a rugby ball? You rarely see it.
Yeah,
It's
almost never.
unheard of. It's very hard to see that. And then you think about where rugby clubs are, like even for Ealing, I know. So Ealing, let's talk about Ealing. So when I was 17 years old, obviously starting my rugby journey, I used to give myself at least about an hour and a half to get to Ealing. The first time I went, I got lost because I don't know, I just got lost and my coach found me somewhere in West Ealing, and I was like so upset that I missed. I was like, no, sorry, don't worry, next time I can meet you and we can go together and stuff like that. So, but anyway, you go to the bus stop, you go down the Vallis Way, that long road to the end, and then the club is there. So I used to go down, especially in winter time, it used to be dark. I used to go by myself, hop on the bus, on public transport, get off the bus stop, walk down Vallis Way, you know, in the dark. Then you get to the end of the road, you're at the rugby club, and then you walk past the massive field to actually get to the clubhouse where the lights are. So all of that, for me, it was okay because, I mean, it wasn't okay, but I did it because I had the passion for the sport and I didn't mind, you know, walking in the darkness. But that's a barrier, you know, because not everybody is going to feel comfortable taking public transport and go walking in the dark to get to rugby training. And a lot of the people that I played with, they had cars, you know, their parents used to take them to the rugby clubs, take them to training, take them to matches. And, you know, I was doing it by myself. So I'm just sort of picking out a bit of the struggles that I went through. And that was hard, but again, I loved the sport so much, I didn't mind, you know, that journey. So I think that probably comes a bit down to accessibility, like getting to the rugby clubs. And you find a lot of these programs, the kids enjoy it, but it's about how to get them to love it enough, or how to get them to transition from the school to actually their local clubs. Because it's okay in the school, they had someone coming in, a familiar face, and then they go out into the club and maybe they don't know anyone. It's like that sort of, you know, situation where you're not sure anymore because you got a new teammates, you got a new coach, and everything's a bit weird. And then on top of that, you don't see people that look like you. You know, so it can be quite tough. And a lot of the people that I speak to as well from ethnic minorities, especially the young children, a lot of them, the common themes are like, I don't see people that look like me, I don't fit in. That's very common. And I'm like, I know how this feels because I lived that experience. So I think going back to representation is key. and showing role models that are ethnic minorities on the TV and adverts, maybe donning the new England kit, which, Shauna Brown did really good with. So it's like just making them more visible is very important, not even just from an ethnic minority point of view, but even the women as well. Making the women more present on social media, on all the campaigns, so that young girls can feel like they've got heroes they can look up to. So yeah, I think that's definitely important.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think the rugby authorities are doing things, or have been doing things, to try and encourage. Unfortunately, with obviously the times we're going through now, I can only see that a lot of those budgets are just going to be cut. So it's probably going to fall down to the clubs now to go out and try and pursue these sort of projects and the players from the places that you've just sort of mentioned. Mm-hmm. Can you think of any ways that they could do that? Because obviously it's all going to be volunteer based. Any kind of sort of tips or thoughts around that?
I think in terms of going into schools, like I always think that taking somebody that the kids can relate to, I think is a good one, because I'm just thinking like it's great, like Project Rugby and All Schools Program, they're doing great getting the development officers to go in to run a rugby session. If you're going to a place where it's heavily ethnic minorities, I think it'll have more of an impact, or be a bit more powerful, the message you're trying to send, if you have somebody that they can relate to. Because I know a lot of young kids, they'll probably go like, well, you as a white young man coming to tell me to play rugby, and you have a room full of, like, let's say 50% of black kids, they'll probably be thinking like, how can I fit in? I feel like sometimes you have to take someone that they can relate to. Obviously it's not always possible, because we still need a lot of us to be in the game in the first place, but I think that would help, even having role models like Shauna Brown, Maggie, even people from the Premiership in the women's game, to come down into the schools and to speak to the kids on their level. I think that will also help. I'm trying to do some work with my local club, with my Barnes rugby club. We're in talks about seeing what we can do to try and like diversify our club, and just to make it more of a welcoming space. We're already welcoming anyway, but just to sort of help to attract the diversity
even more so,
within the club.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So moving on, obviously there's been the Black Lives Matter movement fairly recently, and the Premiership clubs got together to decide how they were going to respond, or demonstrate their support for this. What did you make of the Premiership club's reaction that they're doing at the moment?
Yeah. So initially, on the first day, I did watch that moving video of Ugo Monye, Maritoji, and Ellis Genge. They were talking about their experiences growing up being black, and what they had to go through. And it was very moving, very touching, I think, for anybody, regardless of your race. And it just sent that powerful message, because a lot of people, there's a lot of talk, a lot of people are saying, Black Lives Matter movement is a political ideology, and this and that, and all lives matter, those kind of comments. And it's sort of totally missing the concept behind it, the real meaning behind Black Lives Matter. We're saying that our lives matter just as much as anyone else's. And I feel like it was a good move for them to do that video, because they're like, sporting heroes, and for people from the rugby community watching their experiences, it almost sort of hit home a bit more, because they're legends in the game, essentially. And I know a lot of clubs did various things to sort of show solidarity. Some did a kneel on one knee, some wore t-shirts. Everyone had their own way of expressing things, which I thought was great. But I think what we need to remember is, all of this stuff is great. Showing solidarity is great, but what happens after that? What can everyone do in their own personal lives to make the situation better? Things like speaking up for a friend that's been, targeted racially amplifying the voices of your black friends and black people within the community, being a listening ear for your black friends and people in the community that are going through certain things, and just because you can never truly understand, if I'm honest, like 100%, but acknowledging that and just also asking questions, I think, because a lot of people are I've noticed a lot of people, what people say is they don't want to offend. I think that's a lot of what people are saying, they don't want to offend. And there's no harm in asking questions. If you feel like maybe you're not sure about something or what you think, just ask. And also do your research, because there's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of movies you can watch, a lot of literature, a lot of books you can read to really get to grips of Black history, to educate yourselves. But I think at this moment in time, a lot of people are, I mean, within my own rugby club as well, within my team, we've shared a lot of resources. We've had to have uncomfortable conversations, which is, race is, it's always been an uncomfortable topic. Nobody wants to offend, but I think normalizing it by talking about it more and just obviously being careful of the language you use and just being open and honest. Sharing resources has been a big thing across social media, of everybody just sort of educating themselves, and seeing what they can do to help the situation. And then you had the flip side of, for example, I saw a video on Instagram that England Rugby put out. It was of Maggie Alfonsi, Shauna Brown, and Deborah Fleming talking about Black Lives Matter movement and what their experiences have been being Black playing rugby. And the video was great, but when you scroll down to the comments, a lot of them were absolutely disgusting, vile, really, really like hurtful things, For example, somebody would say something like, stick to rugby, why are you getting involved in this politics, stick to rugby, just really offensive stuff, so that's sort of the bad side of things. But I think in general, from what I've seen, people are starting to look within themselves, whether it's sporting organisations or even any other general organisation. I think, what can we do to sort of change things within our own scope and within our own field? And I think doing that, if everyone does that, look within themselves, within their homes, with their families or within their workplaces, and do those changes, as a whole society, you can make a big impact and make a change. So it's about doing those things after you've done all of the solidarity and standing with people in the Black community. What can you do behind the scenes and in your everyday life to make a general impact? I think that's the most important thing that people can take away from this.
Yeah, awesome. And I've got to say, that was actually one of the reasons why I was really keen to get you on the podcast, is because sometimes I definitely fall into that trap of feeling like I don't want to offend and I'm not quite sure what to say sometimes. So I was very keen to have you on and talk through all this stuff, and see how much we can just sort of like, again, just raise the profile a little bit more and just keep making incremental steps, and hopefully things will be improving all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're getting towards the end now. So we're going to have to find out why you're called the bulldozer, I think, Z.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I'll let you go, but let's go back. Right. It really is not an exciting story. I wish it was, but it really isn't. So when I was playing at Millwall, actually, so I used to play as a number 13 outside centre for a long time. At uni and even after uni, I played centre. And then after having kids and obviously the recovery time to try and get that fitness up again, I noticed I wasn't as quick, I couldn't keep up with the backs, so I wasn't as quick anymore. So I moved into forwards, number 8, and absolutely loved it. And there was basically a move, which was a number 8 pick up from the back of the scrum and running straight into into the number 10. And that move was called bulldozer. So me being a number 8 and doing that move, that just became my name. I wish I had an exciting story to tell you, but I really do not. But I will say this: I like the name, and it's nothing to do with like being cocky or being, full of myself. It's more of like, because what is a bulldozer? A bulldozer is a construction equipment that smashes things, right? You know, demolishes things. So for me, my identity being black, female, Muslim, rugby player, I feel like I'm smashing stereotypes. So for me to be called the bulldozer, I feel like that's sort of like a metaphor for what I'm actually doing in real life. So I look at it from that perspective. And yeah, that's why I just think I love the name, and I feel like it fits me perfectly. Yeah, and I mean, on the pitch, you know, as anyone would do, I'm very aggressive and very, you know, get into it. But I think the whole name, I just love my way of looking at it as like I'm actually smashing stereotypes, and I'm bulldozing essentially stereotypes. And yeah, I love that aspect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's been brilliant talking to you, Z. I've really enjoyed it. If people want to get hold of you, you mentioned your Instagram there. How is it best for people to get hold of you, and maybe you can help people get on in the sport?
I'm on Instagram as Zainab Alema, which is ZEEALEMA. I'm on Facebook as well. I'm on Twitter as Alema Zainab. Yes, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can find me on all those platforms.
Perfect. Okay, so listeners out there in the world, thank you so much for listening. I hope you've really enjoyed it. And if you did, go and tell your friends about it. Make sure you tell people about the Amateur Rugby Podcast, Hot Topics. There's going to be another show tomorrow, actually, so make sure you log in for that. And if you've got any questions or anything, it'd be great to hear from you in the comments below. But for now, Z, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll see you on the next program. And get out and play.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.